The V6 is an engine layout that has been mastered by Japanese manufacturers. It has repeatedly delivered great sports cars like the R35 GTR and NSX. However, as always, some of them stick out from the others, and today we're ranking the Japanese V6 engines in a tier list format to find out which one comes out on top. Before we start, a disclaimer that this has been the toughest list yet because truthfully 90% of the engines here regularly would belong on the higher end of the list, and they're all really good engines. Japan has the V6 down to a science. That said, keep in mind that these rankings are relative to one another rather than just generic, and should be taken probably a little bit lighter than usual. That being said, let's get started. Launching off with Toyota, the VZ series was their first go at a V6. It had a relatively advanced design from the get-go with lightweight aluminum heads. It was initially designed to fight the competition, with Nissan beating them to the punch of creating a V6. Found in a wide variety of vehicles, the VZ engines were on the smaller side and made low to average power output. There are a total of 5 VZ engines ranging from the 1VZ to the 5VZ, with each getting larger and more powerful. The internals are fine with a forged steel crankshaft and conservative tuning. Of the VZ series, there is a bad apple. The 3VZ is problematic with overheating from head gasket leaks and failures. These were prevalent enough for Toyota to take warranty actions and actually extend warranties on many of the vehicles that they're found in. These failures can also extend to the 5VZ engines, and because the competition is so stiff, the Toyota VZ will start things off in the D tier. It feels wrong, but there isn't another engine on this entire list with a major failure point. Next for Toyota was the MZ engine, with 3 variants over its 2-decade production run. Similar in displacement to the VZ, the MZ is a full aluminum construction rather than a cast iron block. All versions have dual overhead cams and make a bit more power across the board. The head gasket and overheating issues from its predecessor were eliminated, and the MZ was generally reliable. There were a few issues such as oil sludging that actually resulted in a class action lawsuit, but that can easily be fixed with slightly more frequent oil changes. There was also high sensitivity to octane levels found in the 3MZ, but overall I would say that the MZ is a step in the right direction from the VZ and a pretty average V6 engine. The Toyota MZ will go into the B tier. The GR V6 is Toyota's longest running and most successful V6. It has won countless awards and can be found in loads of applications. The GR family has 8 engines, with the 2GR the most prominent. The 2GR won various awards itself and makes incredible power per liter in its supercharged versions. Interestingly, the supercharged 2GR is the same engine found in the Lotus Evora, Exige, and new Amira, where it's pushing over 400 horsepower out of a 3.5 liter engine. Certainly pretty impressive stuff. More broadly, the GR V6 utilizes variable valve timing and made the move from a timing belt to a timing chain, solidifying the engine's reliability. Internally, forged steel connecting rods are new to the GR engines. In terms of reliability, almost any GR V6 can run virtually indefinitely on nothing but oil changes. There's truly nothing bad to say about the engine, and that's why the Toyota GR V6 will go into the S tier. Lastly is the Toyota V35A V6, more broadly found as a part of the Dynamic Force engine series. The V35A is Toyota's newest V6, introduced in 2017, and is produced alongside the GR engines. It is based on the 1UR and 3UR V8 engines and is solely found in a twin-turbo configuration. There is also a hybrid version of the V35A, which has become widely known for its immense efficiency. As a whole, the V35A is mainly seen in bigger vehicles, and so far has proven itself a great engine. Sensibly, I will put it where the influencing 3UR V8 was found in the A tier. Now for Nissan, the VG was their first V6 engine. Interestingly, as touched on with the Toyota's VZ engine, the Nissan VG was the first V6 to ever come out of Japan. At first, it was quite simple, with a cast iron block, aluminum heads, and a single overhead cam. But as the years passed, the VG was improved. It could be had with dual cams, variable valve timing, and either a supercharger or a turbo. Those versions actually landed themselves in the engine bay of various race cars. I've seen differing opinions on the VG's reliability, with some complaining of issues with the engine's top end, but a large majority swearing that the VG is the most reliable engine that they've ever owned. Although ultra reliable, the performance figures are still sluggish and will land the VG in the upper B tier. The VE engine is only found in a 3-liter displacement named the VE30. There's not much too exciting to talk about here. It's basically a VG30 engine outside of the timing system. It has a narrow band of applications, and truthfully I'm a little confused as to what the purpose of it was. Using a VG engine in this application would have been perfectly fine, and I wonder if maybe the VE was supposed to be a longer running program that was discontinued for whatever reason. If you know any more about that, leave a comment. I'm actually pretty curious to know what went on here. The VE is still somewhat reliable, but can experience failures that the VG didn't, mainly within its revised timing system. The tensioners and guides can fail if not replaced over a certain interval, and they do a lot of damage when they do fail. This seems like a slightly worse VG30 with a somewhat undefined purpose. I think that the C tier would be appropriate. Now on to what is admittedly my favorite engine on this list. The Nissan VQ series of V6 engines is truly something special. Introducing a full aluminum build, the VQ is found in a ton of vehicles, including sports cars and some racing applications. The Fairlady Z, 300ZX, 350Z, and 370Z all gained most of their popularity from their VQ power units. In racing, the VQ engine ran many seasons in Super GT with multiple race wins. Furthermore, the VQ was named to the world's best engines list over 10 years straight. The VQ engines are usually naturally aspirated with quite a unique sound to them, but can be found with a turbocharger in some rare variants. The performance figures are solid, making over 300 horsepower in significant sports car applications, aided by the super lightweight of the full aluminum design. There's little question for me that the Nissan VQ is surely belonging in the S tier. The final Nissan engine is the VR Series V6, also all aluminum and derived from the VQ engine. Along with taking inspiration from the VQ design, the VR also integrates technology from Nissan's racing engines, such as an electronic wastegate actuator used for the twin-turbo setup of the VR engine. As you likely know, the VR engine is best known for its VR38 found in the Nissan GT-R, where they are regularly modified to horsepower values well into the thousands. The VR, in my eyes, is somewhat a pinnacle of engine technology, making even further advancements on the incredible VQ engine. Nissan's VR engine will join the VQ in the S tier. As we begin Honda engines, I want to first acknowledge their involvement with Formula 1 in the world of V6 engines and just how good those are. Take a look at Red Bull right now, for example, and how few engine failures they've had, as a testament to how well Honda can build a V6. That said, their first road-going V6 was the C-Series, found in the original NSX. This all-aluminum 90-degree V6 was certainly ahead of its time, with decent power per liter thanks to the implementation of the infamous VTEC system for some versions. The C30A and C32B were both found in the NSX depending on the transmission selection, and were also raced in the Super GT series. The internals were quite advanced, with composite materials integrated into the cylinders for increased strength while maintaining a lightweight structure. This also reduced thermal effects as a symptom, helping the C-Series to run extremely cool. I did warn you that there would be too many good engines in this video, but the C-Series still belongs in the S tier. The other Honda V6 is the J-Series, which is still made today and is a 60-degree V6. Larger and slightly more powerful than the C-Series, the J-Series is also fully aluminum and found in many applications between Honda and Acura. The most notable is the new NSX, where the J-Series approaches 500 horsepower and has the help of an electric motor. It is worth mentioning that the JNC1 that's found in this NSX is quite different from any other J-Series engine. On average, the J-Series is reliable, with only complaints of oil consumption across many iterations. Although still a supreme engine, I think it doesn't quite match the technological advancement of the C-Series considering when each of them were made. The J-Series will go into the A tier. Now for Mitsubishi, the 6G7 series was a pretty standard V6. Like many we've covered today, the 6G7 has dual cams and variable valve timing, but can actually be had with either a supercharger or a turbo. In these formats, the power production is admittedly a little low for a forced induction engine. It's best known for its usage in the GTO or 3000 GT, where the 6G72 had twin turbos and made 320 horsepower. These are known for some oiling problems that can damage the bearings and are said to feel a little sluggish in many other applications. Although I love some of the cars that it's in, such as the Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4, with as many good engines as we've covered today, the 6G7 will go into the C tier. The 6A1 is one of, if not the smallest V6 engine ever made, starting out at just 1.6 liters. Still using dual cams and variable valve timing, the 6A1 is an efficient design, getting over 300 horsepower with just 2.5 liters of displacement in its biggest format, and that was over a decade ago. That's a relatively impressive feat for such a small engine. The 6A1 was made so small actually to fight Japan's automotive taxes, but Mitsubishi made sure that the sound performance was still present. They're actually super rare and there isn't much information on reliability, but they do rev to about an 8,000 RPM redline, which is honestly pretty sick. I think pound for pound, the 6A1 is a solid engine and deserves the upper B tier. The final Mitsubishi V6 is their most recent and is still in production. The 6B3 is solely found with 3 liters of displacement and makes low to average power for a modern V6 engine. It only has 2 applications and an aluminum block opposed to the previous engine's cast iron build. A new and complex fueling system in the form of multi-point injection was introduced, and the 6B3 is tuned conservatively for gas mileage and emissions efforts. I couldn't really find any reliability complaints, and as a whole the 6B31 reminds me of the Toyota MZ family. It does everything well but nothing extraordinary and will join the MZ in the B tier. Finishing with Mazda, the J family engines range from 2 to 3 liters and came in a 60-degree configuration. Interestingly, some versions with the single overhead camshaft had 3 valves per cylinder, which isn't very common. The block is cast iron, making the engine on the heavier side, and the power output is average for that era and displacement. Applications were pretty limited, but from what I can find, the reliability of the J family is just fine. My main grievance with these is the power, which is less than the tiny 6A1 from Mitsubishi around the same time. So that said, I think the upper C tier is appropriate. Mazda's K-Series V6 is far more prominent, found in far more applications. It has a completely new design, made from fully aluminum with dual cams, a forged steel crankshaft, forged steel connecting rods, and a 7,000 RPM redline. The K-Series is a pretty small engine, also meant to help with the Japanese taxes, but makes decent power without the help of a turbo. There was one supercharged version, but the power output actually isn't much higher than its naturally aspirated counterparts. What I think is one of the really interesting parts of these engines is that it's well known Mazda way overbuilt them. They're absolutely indestructible, can rev to the moon, and simply don't have any issues. Although small, these engines are quite special and pack quite a punch. One that I would argue is worth wrapping things up in the A tier. Some honorable mentions for Mazda are also the AJ V6 and MZI V6, but these are the same as the Ford Duratec and Ford Cyclone that are already covered in my American V6 video, which can be found linked in the description. So there we have it. This was a really hard one for me because every engine here is very good. Normally there's a few that are clearly worse than the rest, but most of these engines would be higher up in a regular video. That said, keep in mind that this is how I'd rate each of them relative to one another. I hope you enjoyed the video, and be sure to subscribe to the channel to stay tuned for the remainder of the series, and leave a comment on which engines you want to see next. As always, thanks for watching and have a great day.